Check, 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 check.
What is up?
Just a sec, Jonathan. We're gonna start in a sec.
All right, I'm gonna grab some water.
Okay.
Mm. Hey, I'm gonna restart my computer real quick.
Okay.
So we're just doing audio for this, right? So I don't need my camera on.
Yeah, you don't need your camera on, but it also doesn't matter because I'm just gonna download the audio from it anyways.
Got it. How do you do that? Just out of my curiosity.
I'm currently streaming to YouTube to a private video that's gonna save on YouTube.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see any reason why this has to go past like 7.
Lit. I'm excited.
Yeah, should be good. Good discussion. So, dude, check it out. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this, but you kind of can. There's one
What the
Band-Aid.
fuck did you do?
You can't really see the All right, it's because it's on the inside.
I saw it. Oh my god, what
Yeah.
happened?
I kind of got bumped off my bike.
By whom or what?
A truck.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Did they like
Yeah,
stop
so-
and like help you out, or did they just?
Oh no, he yelled at me to get the F off the road.
Oh my god.
So yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ. Did
So
anyone
that's why I'm
see
not.
it?
I got people. There was one lady who came up and said something, but other than that, no. So
Wow. I would have like hoped so. I would have fucking. Yeah. Damn. That sucks, dude.
yeah. Which is also why I'm pretty much not riding my bike in Boone anymore.
I've never ran into anything like that. I don't think. I ran into some people that have almost hit me, like when I was walking, but never any issues on my longboard. Which, if I did run into an issue on my longboard, I would just eat shit and die because I've never been on a fucking accident on my longboard.
Pretty much.
before. Like,
Glad I was wearing the helmet that I was because that was my only protection, and I felt my head hit the ground.
boy, oh boy,
Yeah.
that's scary because I don't wear a helmet when I longboard.
Why don't you usually stick to like pedestrian areas anyways, so like
Yeah.
sidewalks and stuff?
Yeah, I ride on the road at one spot at like That's it, and and then that has a bike lane, so I'm not too worried about not wearing a helmet. I really should though. If I'm like riding around on roads, I should probably wear a helmet.
That's true.
I could always just clip it in my book bag and then go. God, how lame would that be to die in a fucking longboarding accident? That would literally just like nix everything good in my life that I've done.
Yeah, pretty much. Just it's like they put that on your grave so that nobody else bothers to look up anything about you.
You know automatones? I think that's how they're pronounced. Automatones?
I feel like I've heard of them.
They're like the little they're shaped like eighth notes, and then the things that you squeezed, they're like faces, and you squeeze the face and you like put your fingers on a certain part of the fret like you would a guitar, and it sounds like it's singing.
That's weird.
Let me show you a clip, or I'll send it. But they're really funny. Just like anything with them, just cracks me up.
What is it?
Automatones or automatones.
Jonathan just got your
You just got my snap.
Yeah, I'll fucking say.
Uh-huh. I've seen those. It's really cute.
Yeah. Just the way they sound always cracks me up. I watched a video of someone covering Ave Maria on one.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, that is cute. All right. If that's that, then let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah. So my right now Hangout is saying it's not detecting a camera, which is bullshit.
You don't need. It's just audio.
Yeah, I know, but I'll need to get it worked out by tomorrow.
That's true.
Okay, so I guess like, is there anything that like, do I need to introduce myself, or are you going to do that, or what?
I'll give a brief introduction in a sec.
Okay.
So once we're good to go. Jonathan, you got yourself figured out?
I mean, I'm good as long as I don't need the camera.
Yeah, totally. It's just supposed to be a podcast, so it's audio. All right. All right, so this is the digital remediation for my multimodal project. I have decided to do a podcast in which a few of my peers and I will be discussing the future of online media, funding therein, and the issues around revenue models and how to find economic viability. In this podcast, I've got one of my friends, Noah Basil, who is a major Okay. Thanks, Jonathan.
Well, I was just saying you didn't have to interrupt yourself, and then you could have kept
I didn't
going.
interrupt myself.
Okay.
Now I do have to do that though.
You can edit all this out.
Yeah, I know, and I'm going to. Anyways, all right, so let's just get to the first talking point then. So we're all journalism adjacent, at least. Jonathan, you work with New America. Noah, you're a media major at UNC. So the first question is, what is your willingness to pay for media? To pay for journalism?
Well,
Oh, go ahead, Jonathan.
I think it really depends on one, the media that I'm paying for, or the source of it at least, and two, how much I need it. So I never paid for news or journalism until I started working on the Clinton campaign in 2016, at which time I definitely needed to get a New York Times subscription. And there was a deal going on, which made it pretty inexpensive. And so it was good to just keep track of what was going on day to day, and it was definitely worth it at that point in time. And now working at New America, I write a bi-weekly newsletter. I keep track of the news, so it's still pretty important to have the New York Times open to me. And so I still keep my subscription around. That being said, I'm a little reluctant, at least from a price standpoint, to pay for anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually something that that's come up a lot in my research, is that it really kind of, especially with the New York Times, it kind of has to be one of those names before you're willing to really even consider putting money down for it.
Yeah, definitely. And I have considered putting money into other sources like the Guardian or the Washington Post, but those don't have quite the same restrictions on their access that New York Times does.
Mm-hmm. I think New York Times does a 10 articles a month that you can see for free.
That's right.
Yeah. And Noah, what is your feelings about paying for journalism?
Well, right now, paying for journalism isn't really something that I have to worry about, because with UNC, with Chapel Hill, we get free subscriptions to Time News, the Times, Washington Post, and I think the Raleigh News and Observer. So it's not really something in my immediate concern, but with the local newspaper back home, the Times News of Burlington, I come into the problem where I can only view like 3 articles in a day or something like that. And I'll go back every week or so and look at the news just to see what's happened in my hometown over the week and see if anything big or changes have happened. And I come into frustration because I want to see this, but deep down, I really don't feel like I need to pay to view this online journalism. And I think that if it was, I could bring myself to pay for a daily newspaper. I feel like I can do that more because I have it in print, I have it in my hand, it's a material copy. But if I can't bring myself to subscribe to something that I'll go and look at and that could change on the fly.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of, oh, go on.
No, go ahead.
No, I was about to move forward, but if you had something to add.
Well, no, I was gonna take us towards the economic responsibilities, but I think you had that at the end. So if you want to keep moving.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. No, that's a good point. When you're looking at something digitally, especially since you or I probably don't read the news daily. Like, I don't sit down, even with the New York Times, which I pay for, I don't sit down and like read the news in the morning. So I see why you wouldn't want to pay for the Times News of Burlington, and I probably wouldn't either, because I'm, maybe once or twice a month I'll see something happen in Burlington and be like, oh, I'll go and check the Times and see what happened. Maybe even not that often. And so it wouldn't really be worth a monthly subscription, but I do think it's still important to pay for the journalism that you have access to, just because someone needs to provide that to you. You know what I mean? Even the staff writer for the Times News in little old Burlington still needs to get paid somehow.
Yeah.
Which actually that does kind of tie into the economic responsibility of of readers. So you would definitely say, Jonathan, that the readership needs to be paying at least something for the content that they are consuming.
Yeah, I would say that, but it is a little tricky because, like I said, sometimes you'll only check in for like a couple articles. If you're consistently using the 10 articles a month from the New York Times, then you should consider a subscription. But if you're only checking in, a handful of times a month, it can be hard to justify the economic burden of paying for a monthly subscription.
I think that, in my point of view, I think that some of the burden for supporting online journalism is on the readers, but I think it only should go to a certain extent. And this is kind of a large concept I'm going to introduce here. Is that I think that at the state or local levels, that and I don't know if they do or if they don't, but newspapers and journalism publications should receive some type of subsidiaries from the state or local governments that they will be reporting on. Now,
go ahead.
I don't think that should cover all of it, but I think it should do enough that they don't have to rely on paywalls to prevent people viewerships from seeing what they have published. But I also think that there should be at least a little bit of something.
Aiden, you have anything to say on that?
No, it sounded like you had somewhere you're going with it.
I do. I think that is like hugely problematic. Like I appreciate where it's coming from. Like, we should subsidize it because it's an important service. But a key factor of journalism is to hold the government accountable. And if journalists are getting a kickback from the government or are basically being partially owned by the government, then that would change the way they report on them. As it is, the public pays journalists, and the journalist's duty is to the public to bring them the truth. And if they were to be beholden to the government for their paycheck, then I think I just think it would not be very good for a free press.
Yeah, I mean,
that's there is a sense of independence that needs to be inherent in journalism, and I think there's one or two countries, China and North Korea, in which the government owns the news organizations, and it kind of just doesn't really work out over there.
Yeah,
right.
So I'm gonna steer us if you've both spoken enough on that.
Yeah, you got it.
One last thing I'd like to put in.
You go ahead.
I think that I'd liken to certain, as an analogy, to me, I have problems with the whole tipping industry in restaurants and how it feels like we have to pay the waiters or waitresses their what they should get as their payment from their employer. And I think that this can kind of be likened to journalists. And I think that, yes, we are paying for a service that is, we're paying for a good. We're paying for a service, which is the journalism, which is the news, which is the newspaper. But I think that to a certain degree, that being informed as well as informing is a right that we are entitled to, not so much that we have to pay for, which is one of the reasons I think that journalism should be free for all. Because if it's free, then there's more likely more people that are going to be informed that should be, rather than staying ignorant.
Well, no, you actually just kind of helped me segue into my next point without even realizing it, and that's what economic responsibility is inherent in the journalist or the news aggregators and the supply side of journalism. Like, do you think that it's on them to some degree to provide free content because they need to be able to by providing free content. They'd be informing the public. They'd be giving their goods and, you know, getting all of their information out to the people, as many people as they can.
Yeah, I think that I agree with that. I think that in the online journalism that I've experienced, one of the one, like, the form of payment that I like the best is like when companies use ads. So if they have ads on their website, and I'll be the first to tell you, if I needed to turn off my ad blocker to view the content without having to pay to get past a paywall, I would do it in a heartbeat. But it's something about, and I don't mind seeing ads on the side of my screen, or ads that I have to click out of. Like, that's something I can mindlessly do, but I just can't bring myself to pay through a paywall to see something that I feel like I'm entitled to know.
Well, I think saying you're entitled to a free press is, I don't want to say privilege, because I don't want to get into that, but I think there are a lot of places in the world where free press is definitely not taken for granted the way we take it for granted here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all well and good to say that yes, free press is a right, and it is in fact a right. But you know, someone has to pay for the free press, if that makes sense. You know, free press isn't free monetarily. So
Right.
yes, you know, there are journalists out there who would gladly do it for free, I'm sure, if they could still eat and live in a comfortable home. But you know, they can't just do it for free just for the sake of the free press and
Right.
for the sake of information and a well-informed public. Someone has to pay for that, and I feel like ads probably don't cut it. If they did, we wouldn't be asked to pay.
Right. No, I see what I agree with what you're saying, and I don't want it to seem like I feel like it's a privilege that I should be entitled to free press. It's not so much free press to me. I feel like I'm entitled to what's happening. And we've been using the running example of Burlington Times News. If something happens in Burlington, like if someone's murdered, then I want to know what happened. I want to know who did it. I want to know when it happened. I want to know where it happened. And I want to know how it happened. But like, I don't, to an extent, I don't feel like I should pay to know that information. I feel like that's something that I should just know, and I shouldn't have to hear off of someone on Facebook or on Twitter or something like that. I feel like that information is important to the viewership of Burlington and adjacent cities, and that therefore should be free. But saying that I am entitled to free press is, I will agree, ignorant, because you know they got to get paid somehow.
Well, I think you get into an interesting point there, and I think, Aiden, this is a point that you mentioned wanting to discuss. There are multiple ways to do this. It's not just it's all paid or it's all free.
Right.
You know, New York Times, I regularly went through those 10 free articles, and so I figured it was worth it to pay. But you know, and I think the Washington Post does something like that, where certain articles are not behind that paywall, and maybe more specialized articles, or more maybe articles that would have a wide appeal are in fact behind the paywall, but something that's important to know now is still open to the public. So maybe the Times of Burlington, when there's a murder or a crime or something that's very important that people need to know, they could have it open. Anyone can see it. But if you want to read their big feature on the Burlington Carousel Festival or something like that, you would have to pay to read your sort of public interest, less urgent sort of articles.
That's a payment plan that I could get behind.
See, Jonathan, that's like this, because that's actually one that I've never even considered, is because usually you think, you know, you have your hard paywalls, which is like, one example of that is the Wall Street Journal. You cannot read anything that the Wall Street Journal publishes unless you're paying for it. and that's because they have a dedicated reader base and they have a very specialized content, and they're able to do that and still get by. But what most of the time you have is these soft paywalls, which is like the 10 articles. But I had never even known that there was a that kind of like mixto paywall where you've got, you know, some articles that you don't have to pay for and some that you do. That's actually, I really like that. But
Well, don't quote me on that. It's just when I use the Washington Post, sometimes it'll say, "Oh, you used up all your articles," and sometimes it'll just have it open, and that's not even like, because if it's a, you know, sometimes it'll be like, "Oh, you're at 4 out of 10," but sometimes it just won't have any warning at all. So don't take it as fact from me. But if it's the case, then I think that's a pretty good system.
And Noah, you mentioned something earlier. In this paper, I actually am arguing for the use of ads as the major contributor of funding, but it actually has been found that unfortunately ads cannot 100% pay for they haven't been proven to fully pay for the for the service. What?
And I think that you get into a good point, and I think that the landscape of advertisement is changing rapidly, and I think that it's coming into even more question of how far we can get with ads. And I think that, and this is just my own perception, is that ads are less effective now than they've ever been, the least effective now than they've ever been. And I think that part of that, it comes from multiple reasons. I think that on one hand, it comes from viewership being more, a lot of people use ad block, and a lot of people won't view something that requires them to turn off ad block. Like I'm to blame for this too. There is an auto bibliography site that I use, and then if you do like 3 or 4 bibliographies, it tells you, all right, well, to get your bibliography block, and it's kind of frustrating to me. And I think that you see a lot of ads pulling out their support from various mediums, and I'm going to use YouTube as an example because recently Wall Street Journal posted a publication, and a few YouTubers have gotten into this about how there are big name ads, Pepsi and Coke, on questionable videos. And I think that ads and advertisements are so prone to being called out by media and called out by consumers that they're scared to put anything out.
I think while that does hold some water, that's kind of using YouTube in this case might be a little bit weird because it's this weird mix of like entertainment and, you know, sometimes there's a little bit of journalism on there. So I think if you're getting into like a New York Times using ads, it's a little bit different because that is just, you know, one entity posting ads on their content rather than you know, individual producers. Although I did make a note. I think it would actually be pretty important to make sure that like there does need to be some sort of disconnect between the advertisers and the content providers, and that if I saw a New York Times piece on like how Dodge like was flubbing their environmental testing,
or
and
like
it's
Audi or
sponsored by
something.
Ford, I think that like I would lose all faith. So it'd be in the New York Times. So I'd have to. It is going to be, you know, one thing that I would really like to see is maybe there's this online service called Patreon. I'm sure you guys have heard of it, where you give money if you want to, but you can still view the content otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think that like that in conjunction with I actually really like what Jonathan said earlier, even if it's what they use or not, where it's like the more important pieces you can see, but your culture pieces and your flavor pieces you have to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's some sort of intermingling of those ideas that's going to end up winning out, and that'll become the normal modus operandi for these newspapers.
That's a good point. And I think, and building off of that, I want to bring up the building off of what you said about Patreon. I think another good multifaceted approach to funding online journalism could be like a tiered subscription system where, and I'm going to use Humble Bundle as an example. Humble Bundle gives out, they take older games or newer games sometimes, and they take older games, and what they'll do is they'll say, okay, if you pay this minimum amount of money, you get this amount of games. But if you pay more than the average, then you'll get these other games. And then if you pay even to this third tier, then you'll get even more games. I think that what online journalists could implement is something similar to this, where we'll use the Times of Burlington, for example. If you pay the minimum amount that they need to pay everyone and get by, week to week, then you can view their content, you can view what they publish. But if you pay more than that, if we'll say the minimum is 3, if you pay like 10, then you get to view special articles. You get to maybe have access to the app, stuff like that. I think that a tiered system would serve better to get the income that they need, as well as give readers like us who only want to see the minimum of what they have to offer, get what we want.
Okay, I think that's actually a really good idea. Actually, sorry, that sounds super condescending. I think it's a good idea, especially for the people who want to go above and beyond and still, and access all of the content they really care about. The Burlington natives who live there, as opposed to the people who have moved away like us, who might want to check in every now and again. But would you still, or would you even want to pay that $3 a month just to check in every now and again?
If I knew, I feel like if I knew that I was paying for the bare minimum, and if it was a much smaller price than what the subscription used to cost, if I knew other people were paying more for more content that I didn't need, I think that is, for some reason, that resonates with me more than everyone having to pay a flat fee to see any part of the Burlington Times.
Sorry, I just got distracted.
That's okay.
Okay.
Right.
So I was just looking up the Times News subscription.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually $13 a month plus tax. Which frankly, that seems a little steep for me. I pay $8 a month for the New York Times, and I get full digital access to it.
Yeah. I agree. That's pretty steep for me.
Yeah, but do you think that's because, the New York Times has readerships in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands? The Times News, are there 100,000 people in Alamance County, much less Burlington? Maybe they just need that higher amount to keep the lights on.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. They do need that higher amount, and I think that it's unfortunate that they need that higher amount. And that these local newspapers, like the one at Burlington, these are the newspapers that wholeheartedly depended on print news media, and at the turn of technology, they just kind of floundered for a little while. And it's great that that small publications like the Times News of Burlington are able to come around to this media and digital age and bring their news and what they have written and what they've have to offer to the people of Burlington and other residents online. However, I do think that it's just difficult for them, and I empathize a little bit that it's difficult, and they need to get the money that they need to get to pay these people so they can come into work every day and do what they like to do. But at the same time, I really could not bring myself to pay $13 a month.
No, I'm the same way for sure. I think honestly, I think $13 to $15 a month would be more than I want to pay for the New York Times, even at least right now.
Yeah.
Which is really not considerably more than what I'm currently paying. So I guess it's this really interesting for, you know, because of the volume of, or because of the volume of readership, and because of the volume of readership, you've got this issue where the high quality, high subscription newspapers are the ones that you can pay less for, because, you know, they can spread the costs out across, you know, hundreds of thousands of people, and in that case you end up paying almost twice as much for what is certainly less important, and I would venture to say lower quality journalism. That's not, you know, to disparage the Times News, but that's just the case. So it's sort of this interesting, like, oh, you're going to pay more for this because you're one of a handful of thousands of people who read it.
But to be fair, yes, the quality of the work and the popularity of the work may not be all that great. However, the information that they are publishing and the things that they are talking about, you're only going to be able to find in the Times News of Burlington. Sure,
it is a very specialized product, which I guess is where, you know, it's
like you said, a dilemma.
Well, no, that's not what I was getting at. It's just like, you know, this specialized handmade product is just for you. It's just the issues that you care about. So I mean, could you sell it as like an artisanal journalistic experience, you know?
Small batch.
Yeah, small batch journalism. But I mean, we laugh, but that is sort of the same scenario. You know, if you're going to buy local eggs or local honey or something like that, you're going to pay more than you would over at Walmart. Same for local news. You know, if you want to find out what's happening close to you that people can't just wrap up and send out to the entire country, you're just going to have to pay more for that. And you know, it seems sort of backwards, because, you know, the news happening in Burlington is less important maybe than the news happening in Washington, maybe. That's relative, but you're still going to have to pay more for it because it's local.
I think either way you look at it, whether or not it's more important or less important, the local news is definitely, you know, the one that's taken the biggest hit with the move to online. So I think they're gonna have to figure out the whole payment scheme before someone like the New York Times really has to nail something down, or before you know, the Washington Post really has to figure out what they're doing. I think those local newspapers are probably going to be the forefront of whatever or whatever comes up at local levels, whether it's a set newspaper or not. I think that's going to be what ends up kind of winning out when it comes to this to what economic models, what revenue models work the best.
Yeah.
No, are you clicking something?
Yeah, sorry. It was mindless. There was something you brought up in your talking points that I'd actually like to get around to. It's like the issues with online journalism.
Yeah, that was actually
if we have time for that.
I mean, if you want to keep talking, then we'll keep talking. That actually, I'll go ahead and kind of segue into that off of local news. One of the recent revenue models that has come up is this thing called it's the patch model, and it's this hyper localized sort of grant funded journalism, and it's worked out some, but it actually recently shut down, so that doesn't work anymore. And I feel like if the local newspapers aren't the ones who figure it out, then it's gonna become, Facebook and word of mouth that passes local news at least. So you want to segue off of that into what problems do you guys have with online journalism? Like, have you seen cases of the so-called fake news or like that?
I think that while I haven't encountered any proof of fake news, I do see an issue when it just comes to online journalism. I think that with the innovation of online journalism and the ability to just post all the news that you create online, or the news that you publish online, I think that it takes away, and if I had a word for it, I'd use it, but it takes away from the writers and the editors and the publishers' job to get it right the first time. Because with the way things are now, they can go in and they can say, this person murdered this person at this time. And if they screw it all up, then what they can do is they can just go in and edit the article. And I think that that's an issue for me, because I think that with the way journalism should be done, you should make sure you have all the facts compiled, you make sure you have all perspectives accounted for, you make sure you have everything that could possibly be accounted for in this story done and downright the first time. Otherwise people just, it's too lax now. People are so relaxed about it. It's like, oh well, we kind of screwed up with that article. We just went back and fixed it. It's like, no, you can't do that.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna interject. That I feel like that issue of redactions and and corrections came up a little while ago, even before the internet was growing, with the 24-hour news cycle. People would you have to fill the 24 hours, so you kind of
grasp at straws.
You throw stuff out there and see what sticks, fix it later, right?
Yeah. There's this famous footage of the Navy Yard shooting, and they pretty much had they didn't have much information going in, so they ended up wasting time for about an hour or two trying to keep the cameras rolling. And I don't know if you ever have time to look it up, but it's almost hilarious how bad it is.
What, them just like stalling for time, trying to fill?
They talk about like how big the building is. They have a guy on the street who's literally like, oh, there's a helicopter, oh, there's a police car, and he's literally just essentially pointing things out on the street. And it's CNN, and Wolf Blitzer is essentially just like floundering for 45 minutes. It's pretty bad.
I see what you're saying, and I realize that this is something that's been around before online journalism hit it big, but I think that the problem is furthered with online journalism.
Yeah,
Totally.
I definitely agree. When you can put anything out, you'll put it out. you know, it doesn't matter. You can just like shoot it out there. You'll fix it later. Or you'll just write weird stuff. And like, you know, I'm a big fan of just like the weird public interest stories. I always think it's funny to see comments and people are like, oh, this is what the New York Times is doing. This is what CNN is doing. It's like, yeah, you know, they have a lot of people. It's not like their whole team is working on the world's ugliest dog. But that, you know, I think it gets at a bigger issue where you know, people just news organizations nowadays, a lot of them just throw stuff out there and see what sticks. I spend a pretty good amount of time on Twitter looking for, you know, looking for news stories relevant to what I do at New America, and so much of the stuff, even from, you know, reliable sources, is just filler, really. And you know, if you look at that enough, you're like, really, this is what, you know, this is what the Guardian is doing with their time. This is what they're doing with their money.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't want to.
Oh, and I was just going to be petty and say I also see a lot of typos, which just irritates me. You know,
Yeah,
you see a big news organization and there's just like a typo. It's like, oh, really?
So I wonder if, you know, if there could be a degree of like paring down in order to also, you know, if you're not publishing as many articles, you're not going to have to, you know, pay as much to publish all those. I hate to say lower forms, but you know, lower forms of journalism where it's just like the world's ugliest dog. Maybe if you don't have to write that, then you can use, you know, less money, and you don't have to scramble for funding.
yeah. I think that that's a really good point, and I feel like with journalist publications feel the need to fill up the entire webpage that they have, as well as newspapers that they publish with just like a news article or 10 news articles on every single page. And it's like, maybe just slim it down a little bit. And like you said, that would definitely decrease how much money they put into their publications, and would therefore decrease how much we have to pay. But it's just like you said, the 24-hour news cycle affects online journalism web pages as well. It's like, yes, a story about Nancy on the corner who waves to kids as they walk past is really sweet and cute and honestly heartwarming in a time like this. But is that really journalism? And is that really something that needs to be put in a, like you said, a world's ugliest dog Guardian article?
Well, you know, then again, you do have to have a place for up and coming journalists to cut their teeth, right?
Right, about the world's ugliest dog.
Right, but then yeah, I guess then maybe still the New York Times, and I know we keep using the New York Times, you know, then big media organizations don't have to do it necessarily. They can leave it up to your local newspaper, again, the Times News. And you know, a lot of the journalists that I've met haven't started on, like, you know, the Washington Post's local desk. They've started at the Chapel Hill News, or at a local paper in a 5,000 person town in Wyoming or something, you know. And that's where your local news comes from. That's where up and coming journalists get their experience. So then
Island
maybe
Packet.
the Island Packet, yeah, the Beaufort, South Carolina Island Packet. But you know, that's where up and coming journalists get their experience. And so then you get local journalism from people who care. Your big newspapers don't waste time and money on, you know, hyper-local special interest news, and they're pulling from an experienced pool of people without having to train them themselves.
Yeah.
Boom. Fixed journalism. We just fixed
There we
journalism.
go. We did it. And I
Slash
think on the note
podcast.
of fixing journalism, I'm gonna ask for kind of closing statements now.
Oh God.
Just kind of, what would you like to finally? What would you like to see
Okay.
journalism become?
I want to see less typos in big news publications.
Amen.
I'm serious.
Amen, Jonathan.
I see them every day. I see them every day, and I'm done with it. But on on a more serious scale, I would like to see a way that you can check in on your local news, and still support that paper somehow without having to pay for like a monthly subscription, when you only use it monthly, once a month.
Yeah. I agree with that, and I think that we should get to a point where it almost feels like, and of course it's true to an extent, that the reader is the sole person keeping up these, is the sole person paying the journalists and doing all these things, and to an extent that should be true, that should be the way it is. But I think that there needs to be more ad support, and ads need to be implemented more. And what I would like to see is what I mentioned earlier, is the tiered subscription service. I think that would work the best for the most amount of people, because it touches all forms of most of the desires that people might have out of a publication. For the people that want the minimum, for the people that want the best experience, and for the people that just want to go middle of the road. I think that the topic when we talked about it, the issues with online journalism, the accountability is a big thing for me, and I think that so much nowadays is brushed off, where someone's name could be published in an article saying they did this wrongful act, and it can come out a week later that it indeed wasn't them, but their name has already been dragged through the mud. They've already been slandered.
Right.
So those are just the things that's what matters to me right now.
All right, Jonathan, Noah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sitting down and talking with me about this.
Yeah, thanks for having
me.
Yeah. All right.
Weird. All right, love you. Hugs.
Right, yeah, drop the. You can. I'm gonna cut it off.
Oh,
after that.
Yeah, hold on.
Fuck! I can cuss now.
Hold on, everybody. Don't leave. First off, Aiden.
Yeah.
Are you gonna be at home next weekend, or are you going straight down to South Carolina?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Saturday, Sunday, not gonna be there. Monday and Tuesday, gonna be there.
Okay, can you send me my my sweet clips from Battlefield 1?
Yeah.
My highlight reel?
Yeah, sure.
Why is your PC not up there yet, Jonathan?
Because it's huge, and
Huge.
I'm moving around a lot. It's huge. And for a while, I wasn't even sure if I was going to be in DC for more than 5 months. It's looking like now I'll be here for like at least a year. God, it's already April.
I know.
So
Halfway through too.
That's why I didn't bring my enormous, expensive, distracting power suck of a PC up here. To much to my discontent, but it's just easier this way. Yeah, I don't know if I've got any like highlights, but I do have a good point where I defended the fort that's like on the little island on Empire's Edge. You know what I'm talking about, Noah?
Yes.
Yeah, my squad and I held out there on an operations map.
Oh man.
15 minutes. We almost saved the sector, but then one of my jackass squad mates spawned in a tank on the other side. And I accidentally spawned in on them and we lost the point. Anyway, would you guys mind hopping on the Roll20 real quick to see if my camera works over there?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Bye. Good
I like
talk,
how
by the way.
you guys started talking about Battlefield 1, and I was just like, oh, they're speaking Jonathan's language now.
Yeah, no, that was a good talk, Jonathan. I like really enjoyed that.
Yeah, we
a
went to
lot.
some interesting places that I didn't really expect. Man, 45 minutes of talking is easy. We should do a podcast.
Yeah, it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, you guys should listen to my brother and my brother and me. It's a lot of fun. Okay, it looks like my camera.
Damn.